just got confirmation that the U.S. is participating in these attacks. The first word that came across the wire services was that these were Israeli-only attacks, Israeli preemptive attacks.
This is a problem, is that Israel has, and this is actually grounded in her German origins, when you think about it. This goes all the way back to the Prussia military academy of preemptive attack. And you can see this in when you read the work of Karl von Clausewitz, where he emphasizes preemptive attack. Now, preemptive attack can be effective, militarily speaking. There's no doubt about that. There's a reason why the German Wehrmacht, for example, were able to have such stunning victories. When preemptive attack is paired with von Clausewitz's other concept of Auftragstaktik, then, which is essentially allowing people on the ground level to have the ability to make decisions. This is a very effective means of waging war. It essentially means that you determine the pace and so on and so forth of the war. You're able to preserve lives on your side, inflict devastating losses on their side, and your side essentially becomes kind of like this flexible, almost ever molding sort of thing because you're able to respond in real time to changing conditions. So this is a very effective thing. The problem is that it is legally contested. Israel has used this tactic, this strategy, time and time again, many times to great effect, though not always. Um, but legally speaking, do you have the right to attack someone because you believe them to be a threat to you? Yes, you do, I would argue. Again, legally it's grey, but again, we need to acknowledge it's grey. But in the case of Iran, it is not clear that they are this giant threat to Israel in the same way that Israel makes out they are. If anything, what we see with the behavior of Israel is rampant paranoia within the ranks. That's what we see, which ironically endangers them more so because they are locked in a perpetual cycle of constant warfare. So this is alarming.
Against the Iranians. But the U.S., Lucas, we are told, is participating, and that's no great surprise.
Yeah, this is no great surprise that the US is participating, and it's alarming that the US is given so much deference and so much favor to this one foreign tiny state. It is no surprise that people like Bryce Mitchell, for example, are very sympathetic towards the old time anti Jewish conspiracy theories dating all the way back to Protocols of the Elders of Zion, because it looks that way on paper. Now, again, I don't believe Jewish Zionism is to blame for this, although they are definitely responsible for, themselves. Rather, what I would argue is that it is the Christian Zionist movement that is responsible for this bizarre fetishizing of the figure of the Jew. That is what is responsible for this. Nonetheless, I can understand a person in America being alarmed at the disproportionate power and sway this foreign government has over theirs.
No, and officials told me the same thing, John, at the start of this broadcast, that this was a combined U.S. and Israeli strike against Iran.
We just got confirmation.
Yeah, again, so this sort of repeated, but it was only 30 seconds long. But as the reporter said, an official said to me that this was a combined US and Israeli thing. So no doubt the American taxpayer paid for this, and American taxpayer paid for the espionage needed to gather the intelligence in order to be able to pull this attack off. Again, if this were anyone else who had been preemptively attacked, in other words, attacked for not doing anything. Let's be clear as to what a preemptive attack is. You didn't do anything, and you are attacked. Now, you can say, oh, but if they're a threat, again, that's not established in the case of Iran. We could argue that was the case for the Six-Day War. This is not the case necessarily for Iran. And so again, what is a preemptive attack? It is being attacked for not doing anything. That is essentially what a preemptive attack is. And they have been aided by the most powerful empire in the world in order to do this. This is alarming because it will bring about the ruin of lives, the end of lives on all sides, and disproportionately on the side of Iranian civilians. And so that is why this is alarming, because if we want to help the people of Iran, then we need to get rid of the sanctions that have been placed on Iran and allow, I'm a commie, and yet here I am advocating for the capitalism, the capitalization, if you will, of Iran. That when you allow money to get into the country, the leadership will bend. They have already demonstrated a willingness to do reforms, as painfully slow as they are. This will speed up the process by tying progress to money. People often have these pictures of Iran before the Islamic Revolution, which, by the way, is nuanced and we need to get into some other time. But why? Why was Iran that way? Because of money. It was because of money. And so when you tie it to money, people change. They are willing to come to the table. That is what needs to happen with Iran, rather than some sort of naive uprising, in which the people are going to overthrow the government somehow. And the US and Israel, in other words, the US, are going to expend many of their own lives and resources on this, and not to mention the countless Iranians that will die in the process. This is terrible. And no doubt this would antagonize China, because she is a close ally of Iran. Chinese-Iranian relations go back thousands of years, something many people don't talk about, and hence the presence of Buddha statues in Iran. And so this is an alarming development. This is an incredibly alarming development, and we should be grateful at the level of restraint Iran has exercised so far. But there is only so much restraint a state can exercise before they have to retaliate.